Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into something we use every single waking moment but rarely think about, the fascinating biology of human vision. We're going to pair that up with the stunning optical physics of the world around us. It's just a perfectly seamless, beautiful system. So let's jump right in.
Before we can really wrap our heads around massive natural phenomena, like rainbows or even why the sky looks the way it does, we've got to understand the microscopic, ultimate biological camera that's actually capturing them. I mean, how does this roughly 2.3 centimeter sphere sitting right inside your head manage to process light, autofocus images, and decode literally millions of colors on the fly?
So here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start by going inside the human eye, check out the power of accommodation, cover some common eye defects and their fixes, and then we'll zoom way out to look at prisms, light dispersion, and exactly how rainbows are formed.
All right, part 1, inside the human eye, the ultimate biological camera. Let's just trace the path of light chronologically. First up, light hits the cornea. That's the thin, transparent membrane at the very front of your eye. And surprisingly enough, this is where about 80% of the light bending actually happens. After that, it passes through the pupil, hits your crystalline convex lens for some fine-tuning, and then projects a perfectly flipped, upside-down image right onto your retina. Don't worry though, your brain flips it right side up for you later.
Now, what's really wild here is how the iris acts like a living, active shutter. Think about it. The pupil itself isn't a physical structure. It's literally just a hole. It's the colored part, the iris, that's physically expanding to shrink the pupil when you're out in blindingly bright sunlight to protect your inner eye. And then it contracts to pull that pupil wide open in the dark, desperately trying to gather as much light as possible.
Heading back to the retina, where that upside-down image lands, we've got two main types of light-sensitive cells working overtime to turn light into electrical signals for your brain. A really handy way to remember them is that rods are for night vision. They handle the light intensity. And cones? Cones are for color and bright light. Without those cones, there is absolutely no way we'd be able to perceive all the vibrant colors in the world around us.
Right, so to keep this whole system healthy and structurally sound, the eye relies on two completely distinct fluids. You can easily remember them alphabetically from front to back, A before V. Up front, sandwiched between the cornea and the lens, we have the aqueous humor. That's a watery fluid supplying vital nutrition. Then, in the back, filling up that massive space between the lens and the retina, is the vitreous humor. This one is way thicker, kind of a jelly-like substance, and it's absolutely crucial because it gives the eyeball its rigid shape. Without it, the eye would just collapse like a deflated balloon.
Moving right along to part 2, the power of accommodation, or nature's autofocus.
You see, unlike a rigid glass camera lens, the lens in your eye is flexible. This is a superpower we call accommodation. You can actually test this yourself right now. Bring a book or your phone super close to your face until the text gets blurry. That threshold? That's your near point. And for a healthy eye, it sits at about 25 centimeters. To read something that close, these tiny little ciliary muscles are literally squeezing your lens to make it thicker and crank up its refractive power. But then, when you look up at the stars, those muscles completely relax. The lens thins out, and your focus effortlessly stretches out to practical infinity.
Okay, part 3, common eye defects and fixes. Basically, what happens when that autofocus fails?
Because nature isn't always perfect, we run into two main vision defects. First up is myopia, or nearsightedness. This is when you can read perfectly fine, but anything in the distance is just a blur. Why? Well, either the eye's lens is too thick or the eyeball itself is too long, which means the image focuses before it actually hits the retina. To fix this, we pop a diverging concave lens in front of the eye. The flip side of this is hypermetropia, or farsightedness. You can see all the way down the street flawlessly, but trying to read a menu? Really tough. In this case, the lens is too thin or the eyeball is too short, so the image is trying to focus behind the retina. We fix that one with a converging convex lens. Now, if you ever find yourself getting tangled up trying to remember the specifics of myopia, just use this totally quirky mnemonic from the source text. Mayonnaise makes Elon thick, went cave. I know, it sounds completely ridiculous, but I promise you it works. Mayonnaise stands for myopia. Elon reminds us of an elongated eyeball. Thick means the lens is too thick, and went cave? Well, that tells us it's fixed with a concave lens. Just picture Elon Musk sitting in a cave, eating way too much mayonnaise, and boom, you've got the physics of nearsightedness memorized for life.
Of course, as we age, we inevitably face a couple of other very common issues. We might experience presbyopia, which is just when aging weakens those ciliary muscles we talked about, and the lens loses its natural bounce and flexibility. Older adults dealing with this often need bifocals. Bifocals are brilliant. They elegantly combine a concave lens on top for distance and a convex lens on the bottom for reading. Another big age-related issue is cataracts. This is where that normally crystal clear lens gets cloudy and opaque. The fix here is a very quick, super common surgery to just go in and replace the cloudy lens entirely.
So now we know exactly how our biological camera works, how it autofocuses, and how it occasionally breaks down. But let's shift gears and zoom out to the macroscopic world for a second. If our cone cells are specifically designed to pick up color, we have to ask the obvious question: how do those colors even exist in the light around us in the first place?
Which brings us to part 4, prisms and light dispersion, unlocking the spectrum.
Here's the wild thing. White light, like the light beaming down from the sun, isn't actually white at all. It's a hidden, perfectly blended combination of many different colors. When this seemingly white light enters a dense, angled medium, like a simple glass prism, we get this phenomenon called dispersion. Because every single color travels at a slightly different speed once it's inside that glass, they all bend or deviate at completely different angles.
And as that white light shatters into its individual components, we get the famous Vib-Jor band. The physics at play here are incredibly precise. Violet light has the highest refractive index, which means it bends the absolute most, shooting sharply down toward the base of the prism. On the other end, red light has the lowest refractive index, so it bends the least, riding right along the top of that spectacular band of color.
But centuries ago, skeptics weren't fully convinced. They wondered, is the light actually made of these colors, or is the glass prism just acting like a paintbrush, artificially tinting the light as it passes through? Well, Sir Isaac Newton beautifully put that to rest. He set up an identical second prism, but placed it completely upside down right next to the first one. When that dispersed fan-like rainbow of colors hit the inverted prism, they were bent right back together, emerging on the other side as pure, solid white light. It proved once and for all that the prism doesn't create the color literally is the light itself.
And that takes us to our final stop, part 5, how rainbows are formed, nature's prism.
Think about what happens inside a single microscopic raindrop suspended up there in the sky right after a storm. Light undergoes 3 incredibly precise chronological steps. First, as crisp white sunlight enters the water drop, it refracts and disperses, splitting right into that Vib-Jor spectrum, acting exactly like Newton's glass prism. Second, instead of just passing straight through the back, the light hits the inside back wall of the raindrop and actually bounces off it. We call that internal reflection. Finally, the light refracts one last time as it exits the front of the raindrop, beaming those beautifully split colors directly down to your eye.
But the geometry of a rainbow is incredibly strict. It's not some physical object floating in the sky that you can just walk up to. To see one, you need millions of microscopic raindrops, you need crisp sunlight, and here is the absolute kicker. You will literally never see a rainbow if you're facing the sun. For this illusion to work, the sun must always be directly at your back, firing light over your shoulders into those droplets and bouncing straight back to your retinas.
It truly makes you appreciate the seamless connection between the massive optical physics of our universe and the microscopic biology inside our own bodies. The sun, sitting millions of miles away, sends a beam of light into a tiny drop of water, which splits it apart, bounces it back, and fires it straight through your cornea, through your pupil, and through your lens, just to be caught by the cones on your retina. So the next time you look up at a rainbow, are you just going to see pretty colors, or will you see millions of microscopic prisms actively bending light right into your own magnificent biological camera? Keep observing, keep questioning, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.